Yo, yo, yo! Switch over immediately. And find the right button. Ah! There we go. Fix that up as well. There we go. I'm being accompanied by a heart today. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. got a heart from my lovely girlfriend. Hi, Dennis. Hi, Antonio. How are you both doing? Hope you're both doing well. Just had special Valentine's burgers as well. We're keeping really healthy. I made them into a heart shape. Antonio's good and tired, but just watched the new trailer of Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Oh my god. Yeah, that's something that I don't keep up with at all. RGB Godzilla? Oh god. I don't even know what this is in reference to. What, is it spewing like RGB colors now? No clue. Pen. There you go. Alright, so it looks like today gonna be like a little bit more of a chill session than we had last time. Because we only have 5 people, I think. Let me double check that we have some late entries. Oh, there's one more entry. Dennis! So late! Well, technically, I would want you to be like a little bit earlier, but I'll add you in anyway. Okay? You're lucky. Okay, cool. Let me just add you in here. Ooh, okay, okay. Cool, cool, cool. I like what I'm seeing. Hold up, let me just duplicate this guy over here. Just delete all these guys. Get your stuff in there. There we go. That's looking cool. It's a great little update. Okay, I'm just gonna squish this guy in here. Nice. Let's see, I think that's everyone. Let me double check. Yes, okay. Thank you, no worries. Hey Hudson. Hey Archie, happy Valentine's everyone. Hi the apples, great to see you all here. Lovely to see you all. Got a special guest today, as you can see. Got like a little heart. A happy Valentine's Day everyone. To be fair, like we're both not really into Valentine's Day, but we both decided that this would be the year that we would do something special for each other. So okay. Let's have a look-see here. I think we should be all set up. Nice. Have any dinner plans? So I made dinner. We had heart-shaped burgers with like a little pesto rucola mozzarella salad and steakhouse fries. So not the healthiest, but perfect for Valentine's. So it was good. We don't really go to a restaurant that often though. Now that you mention it. Yeah, homemade is always better. Sometimes. I've fucked up so many things while cooking, so it depends. But that's a part of the course, you know? Experimenting, trying new things. Heart-shaped hamburgers. Yeah! Yeah. I just made like I prepared like the meat, right? And then I just shaped it into hearts. Kind of gruesome when you overthink it, but don't do that. You know? Good vibes only. Okay, talking about good vibes. Let's get this show on the road. Let me make sure that my pen is set up correctly. There we go. If you can learn to read, and you can definitely learn some cooking. Oh yeah, I love cooking. Yeah, I usually cook like almost every day of the week. It depends on what we cook, right? Because sometimes it's just like, I can't really be bothered by anything, so I'm just gonna make something out of like our favorites, right? Something that's easy. But then sometimes I'll experiment, have some fun with it as well. Megval, you poured boiling water over your hand yesterday, so I can keep cooking today? Jeez! Okay. I hope your hand is healing good, though. Did you keep it under, like, cold running water for at least, like, what is the recommendation? Like 15 minutes or something? A long time? That sucks, buddy. Hey, Aladdin! Welcome back. It's good to see you here. Alright, so we're diving into the usual Whip Wednesday. So we're gonna be diving into the work of some of our lovely community members. I am gonna be looking at my other screen to get some context of what people actually want me to look at. And then we can do like some paint overs and make notes on the images here. So, first person we have here is Archie Garcia. I think Archie is new. Hi everyone, I'm excited to join this community. Welcome, welcome. It's lovely to see you here. In its current state, I feel like it's close to completion. A few things to add in and polish. Burning coals, replace the block out rocks in the water. One thing I need to work on as an environment artist is effectively critiquing my own work. That's difficult because, yeah, you have to look at your own work in like the third person, right? And be objective about your work. It takes a lot of time and effort. So that's tricky because what happens over time is when you're working on your own artwork, like the more you work on it in like a short amount of time, the more you're going to develop tunnel vision. And that's like a part of being like objective about your work. So, yeah. Sometimes it sounds stupid, but sometimes taking a literal step back from your work helps. Little tip there. I like to get some feedback on the overall feel of the environment. If everything fits well together, it catches the eye, catches the viewer's interest. Lighting notes would also be greatly appreciated. Okay, so we're looking at lighting. We're going to be looking at lighting in the focal point, right? So and focal point. I have an exterior shot of the temple included, but I'm debating if I should either bother fleshing out the exterior. I'm going to make that really easy for you, Archie. I don't think you should. Like, that will take too much time for, like, not enough gains, right? So we're talking about this shot over here. I honestly wouldn't finish up this whole scene because that means that you then have to take care of, like, first of all, the exterior of the temple, then first of all, the logic of the place, making sure that the rocks are looking good, making sure that we have, like, background terrain, like, all that kind of stuff. We need to look at clouds, like, it's just too much work for a single shot. I would honestly not include it, and I would just stick to the interiors and level that up to the next level. So remove exterior shot. Would be my recommendation. It's just too much work. To simplify it. You're always comparing like the work versus what you gain by putting in that time, right? And most of your work, or like most of the focus that you have in this environment, is about the interior, right? So the exterior is just like a side thing. I would not focus on that. So yeah, always focus on like the amount of work that it takes versus the gains that you're gonna get from it. Not that much in this instance. So, that was an easy question. And finally, I appreciate some tips on how to have a better eye as an artist. Oh, that is a really vague question, but we can dive into that in a little bit. Okay, cool. You've added a poly count thread. I didn't even look at that. It's cool. Okay, so we got some breakdowns in there as well. Let me show it to everyone else too. This is cool that you can actually see what you're doing. Cool. Okay, I won't be diving into this too much, but yeah. Let's start out with the focal point, right? It is very clear that you want the portal to be the focal point. What you are working with is, especially when you're focusing, when you're looking at the concept, right? I need to make sure that I'm not hiding it behind my webcam. What works really well in the concept here is the contrast between like the earth tones, like the browns, versus the water. Right, but what is happening in your case is that the water doesn't have like a strong contrast in your case, right? It doesn't have like as strong of a contrast with the surrounding values in color. The way that you can fix that is by increasing like how light this is, like the material itself, right? Let me be pretty specific. And then you could almost like go in and like emphasize that with like an additional light. What I would do is I would honestly try to replicate like what you have here in the concept a little bit more by putting like a spotlight. Like a spotlight that kind of fills this area in, right? So you're kind of putting in a fake light that kind of boosts this little area versus the area surrounding it. So that's gonna like lift up like the base values already, right? So we're kind of mimicking what's happening here. And then also like increasing, so we have like number one be like add an area light. And then number two would be basically what I said before, right? So we're going to be looking at the values of the water, and I would try to like boost those up and like make those like more apparent. Like the area light is going to do a good job of this already, right? Because we're shining more light on the actual water surface. But I think, yeah, just lifting it up and maybe like including like some of the greens potentially in there too. Gonna help a lot. We're gonna try to boost the color of the water, right? The reason why I bring up contrast a lot is because that's like a really good tool of what we're working with here. So you can see in your concept over here, like your lightest point of the image is over here. And that's where you want the focus of the actual environment to be, right? So, and that's a great tool that we can then replicate. So an area light would be like an easy way to replicate this. You could potentially also look into I'm gonna add this as like a little plus, right? Like a little additional thing that you could look into. I think they're called color correction regions. What these do is they allow you to do post-processing on like a local level. So you could have like a sphere that only affects like the core, and you could like do local color correction. So you could boost those values of the center area, right? That could be like an effective way as well. I think the area light is going to do a lot of stuff already. Like it's going to have like a big impact by itself. But additionally, you could look into like the color correction regions or areas. I don't know what they're called. That should be easy to find. Yeah, because what we want to do, right? This is all in service of the focal point, right? That's what we're focusing on. I think you could even drive that a little bit further, because in your case, you decided to replace your character, right, from the concept with a portal. Nothing wrong with that. I think that's a good choice. But I think in that case, we need to elevate this color even above the color of the water that's surrounding it. Because what we're basically doing is we're dividing it into three zones, right? So we have like the focal point, which is a portal. Then we have like the center zone, and then we have like everything outside of the center zone, basically the rest of the frame. That's what we're trying to do here, right? So you have 3, and then the core is number 1. So we're kind of building like a gradient going to the core. An interesting thing that we could also look at is I almost basically, like if we're looking at the lights here, right? That's almost like the value that I want the portals to have. So you, not completely, but you basically want to switch those two around. Because this value is brighter than the actual focal point you're trying to set out. So you need to switch those up, because people are always going to focus on like the brightest point, right? What about making a blue light shine through the portal in that case? That could be great. I think what you're going to notice is that once you start leveling up, let's say, take this example, right? If we replace a portal with this sort of value right here, I think you're going to automatically want some sort of light there. So I think that's a great idea, designer. We could swap the values, right? Swap the values here. Again, focal point needs to be the brightest one, right? Because we want the attention to go there. Sorry. Jesus. I'm alright though. Archie is asking, do you think having the spotlight from above contradicting the sun angle being so low matters at all? That's something for you to try. Sometimes it looks a little bit weird. You could potentially also just like rotate the sun to make more sense with the actual spotlight. Because again, right now you're trying to have the sun cause the focal point to pop out more, right? But it's not enough. So changing the mindset a little bit, you could use that spotlight to create like a nice focal point, and then the rest of the sunlight, like the additional sunlight that you're trying to create from like the directional light coming in, that could be like sort of like your fill light. It's not going to be necessarily important, but you still want light there to light up the rest of the environment. So I would honestly balance it towards the spotlight rather than doing it the opposite way. But that's for you to try out, right? Like that's what my gut instinct says. If you feel that it doesn't work at all, you can still switch it up if you want. The balloon was there the whole time? No, it's been there the whole time. Little buddy. Oh. So yeah, let me see. Let me go back to Discord. I think fits well together, catches the viewer's attention. Yeah, I think honestly, most of what I was gonna say anyway was gonna be about the lighting. I feel that you're also missing like a lot of bounce light as well. Which again is something that might be resolved if you're angling your directional light at like a different angle, right? So that you get more bounces because more light might potentially come in. It's all about balancing it, right? That's why I brought this up. Like, you want your focal point to be the brightest in volumes, right? And then you got like your 2, which is like the area that you want to highlight with your spotlight, where you have like your focus coming in. And then 3 could just be filled by your directional light, like the way that it's going now. But I would honestly try to, again, like push for a little bit more like these sort of values. What you could do there is, there's a couple of things that you could do here, right? One thing that I would try and play around with is, I forgot the actual name of it, but actually boosting the amount of bounce light that you're getting from your directional light. It should be like a really simple slider that's in your directional light, I think, that allows you to control like how much like your bounce light is going to be affecting the environment. Play around with that, because that can be really powerful for the rest of your environment. Yeah, because honestly, I think the texturing is looking good. The materials are looking good. The assets are looking good. It's just, we need to make sure that we're highlighting the things that are important to your environment. That's the stage where we're at right now. Let's see. And I think, yeah, in general, just making the whole scene like a little bit more contrasting and more lit up, right? Like a combination of those two. Like, you want to have like a lighter base level, and then at the same time like increase the contrast. Like, again, I keep going back to the concept, right? Because it is such a great, it has great values when you're looking at like the shadows versus the light areas. It does a great job of like introducing a contrast. What I mean by that, let me be really clear, right? So over like the whole value spectrum, right? Like, your values are, let's say, here, right? What I want you to do is broaden that spectrum. So you would introduce like more light and more dark, but be specific with how you do that, right? Okay. We basically talked a lot about like the same thing, right? Like, there's always multiple ways to just say the same thing. Let's see. Yeah, because you're still planning to add like additional polish. That's good, so I'm not gonna comment on that too much. But there was a question that you brought up of tips on how to have a better eye as an artist. A vague question as that may sound. So, my favorite way of training how to become like a better artist is to find a way to basically that you see more, right? Like, you want to take in more information. What I like to do is I like to do photography. I think photography is a great tool for environment artists to really think about like, oh, what is the composition of a piece gonna be? Like, if I'm taking images, like, why does a certain picture not work versus like another picture, right? Like, and then trying to break that down by taking like lots of images, like really trying to see what captures your interest and why. That's like been a really powerful tool for myself. So yeah, go out, travel if you can. Like, I'm not talking about like traveling to like different countries and all that stuff. Like, go out in your neighborhood and like take a camera with you and just explore, look at things above you, look at things below you. Not just, you're not just walking, right? You're taking in information. the more information that you take in, the more actually you can retain over time, and you're building up what is called like your visual library, right? And that's basically what you're asking about. There's other ways that you can do that, right? By watching documentaries, looking in like a lot of books. There's so many ways depending on what you want to do. For me, what is the most effective and what I love to do, because I can kind of go out at the same time, is do some photography. It's been a really effective tool for me. I usually only do it when I go on vacation, but still, I take a lot of pictures. Like, I'm talking about like a couple of thousands, like on like 5-day holidays. Like, I take a lot of pictures. And then afterwards, I actually have a lot of fun, like trying to decide, like, okay, in this series, what is the best one and why? And okay, next picture. In this series, what is the best one and why? Yeah, been a really effective tool. So training your artistic eye. Training your artistic eye, like, my recommendation would be a healthy dose of photography. But you can also do, like, you know, books, documentaries, like all that kind of stuff. It's basically taking in information. You're really an environment artist if you love taking pictures. Yeah, I feel like that's what I see in a lot of people, you know? Yeah. Looking into walls and floors to imitate those textures. Yep. I have a lot of pictures of just like, oh, interesting decal, or ooh, interesting texture, or just like weird looking stuff, you know? That never would make sense, but it makes sense because it is in real life. Like, you would never see that in a game, for example. Yeah, no. So I hope that helped, Archie. Again, welcome to the community. Thank you so much for putting up your work, for feedback. And yeah, if there's more questions, let me know. I wonder how to do designer in your head. Yeah. Definitely gonna try to do some more photography. Yeah, you should. Yeah, for me, the combination of photography and traveling, oh, so good. Because, I mean, I love the act of like immersing myself in like a different culture, right? And I feel like, for me, like, taking photographs is like the best way to translate that into something that's gonna be memorable to me. Lamia is saying, maybe try plein air painting. That would be good. Plenty of groups. Yeah, for sure. This is the thing, right? That's why I put an emphasis on what works for me, or what I really like to do is photography. I've done a lot of drawing, right? Like, in high school, I was basically like drawing like so many hours a week, and just like drawing what's in front of me, right? So I had like a really strong base because of that, because I was used to looking at things and then trying to translate that onto a piece of paper. And that then translates to like 3D as well, of course, because you're still doing the same thing. You're looking at references and then trying to replicate that in 3D. Hey, Fricty, welcome back. Good evening. Adam is here as well. This has improved a lot since last time. Yes. Let's dive into it. Dennis, it has. It has. I love the new additions of like the burnt soil. That adds a lot to the whole vibe. I think this is going good. Let me get some additional context, right? Let me read your little thread. Made some changes to the vegetation in the carriage, added a raw fabric version, a book sign, and some ground foliage. Now I'm trying to improve the battlefield and the scene in general. Yeah, I think that's a good thing to focus on, because that's the story that you're trying to tell, right? Yeah, I think that's honestly great. Great job so far. Yep. I like where this is going. So the ground textures are looking nice. Lovely. Special Valentine's Day heart. Love it. Put the cloth in. We've got like a book sign there as well. Yeah. You still want to scatter like all the books, right? I think you're still gonna work on that. I think overall the battlefield feel is really good so far. Trying to think. I think if you really want to drive it home, you have to look into. I'm trying to think of a recommendation, but I'm not sure if they have them. What I was gonna say is there's a pack from Big, Medium, Small that has medieval characters. I think they have like lots of dead knights. I think in that pack too, but I mean, it is expensive, right? So in your case, I would honestly look for possibly free versions, and then maybe give like an indication of bodies in the back. What could maybe work, and this is a hacky technique, right? So I'm thinking if you put like some bodies like in the back, right? Like against this little palisade, or like, I don't know, in between the forest or something like that. What could work for that distance is having like a decent enough character in the background, and then just projecting like decals on top of it, where you could see that like their clothing is burned, or you have like, you know, basically turning the ground texture into like a little decal that you can then use to project onto characters that are in the background. Yeah, bodies hanging from trees as well. Megval, especially because that's like a big thing in The Witcher, right? Like very iconic. Yeah, that could be like a great idea too. So you basically, what I'm trying to say is you need to find like a cheap way, both in time and in like expense, right? If you're gonna go into that, find a way to add bodies. I think that's really gonna sell the whole thing, and it's probably worth looking into. So that would mean have hanging ones. You could have lying down ones. That's gonna really sell the battlefield feel, right? Yes. Find good free knights. Yeah, I know. You could do something quick, rig in mannequins and covering them in tarps. It's after the battle. Yeah, that's why I'm going in the same vein as Adam is looking for, right? What I'm trying to do is it doesn't even need to be like, for example, if we're looking at this distance, right? It doesn't even need to be a medieval knight per se. It could just be like a very generic medieval looking guy that you just put in the background, and you just project like some decals on top of it, because it only needs to work from this distance, right? That's why I put it in the back purposely, so that we get like a little bit of flavor in the back, but you don't want to put it in the front, because if we're talking about like, hey, we're putting like a guy right here, that's not gonna work because we're way too close to it. So that's why I'm proposing it to be like all the way in the back, so we can still add the battlefield essentials, quote unquote, in there, but we can kind of get away with using like really quick tricks. What Adam is saying could also work. I think so. Quickly rigging mannequins and then covering them in tarps That could work if you're doing, yeah, if it's after the battle. You could have like, I don't know, almost like a pile of them or something, right? Might be a little bit too on the nose. Could be an option though. Could be an option. I'm leaving it up to you. But yeah, if you want to do cheap, right? Like definitely work at a distance. Same for the hanging bodies as well. That's actually where something like Adam was saying, you could have like a mannequin that is kind of like, it's not T-posed, right? But it kind of is posed as like it's just hanging. And you could wrap that in tarp and cover it in like ropes using like the ropes that you have from your Tidable, and then hang them from a tree, right? So you don't necessarily have to have a person, but you can have like a body hanging there. So yeah. Lovely talk for Valentine's Day. Love it. Let's see. Blending between terrain materials is natural too. The only thing I'm missing, in my opinion, is some burned foliage. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, especially around this area, right? Like just having some burned foliage, that would be really good. So, burned foliage. That would also be good to look into. I would honestly say, you know, like these two. Those are like the immediate ones, because I know that you're still working on the card. I know that you need to add like all the books and all that stuff, so we're not going to dive into that. But yeah. Sure. You could almost have like lots of burning piles, right? You could, I'm still trying to think about like a cheap way, right? You could have like a pile of burnt down logs with like a stack of bones on it or something like that. Nah. What do I think about it? Less sense it makes. I think going for that, like, it could still be a battlefield feel is probably what you want to go for. And then yeah, like we chatted before, right? It's like little bits of VFX where like the ground is still smoking. The ground is still smoking, like there's still like stuff smoldering, like just like fire effects in the distance, right? Definitely like VFX, looking into that. So smoke. I know that there's a great smoldering, fire in distance, etc. There's a great free fire pack on the Unreal Engine marketplace, so that basically gets you sorted already. Not having any faces or body parts shown makes it also slightly more PG. That is true, but that's up to Dennis as well, right? Thank you for the question, Hudson. We're gonna dive into that in a little bit after we had a look at Dennis's work. Yeah, honestly, I'm honestly gonna keep it to this, Dennis. I think great progress since the last time. Maybe, yeah, the only thing that I can really think about is maybe making like the path affected as well, right? So that you have like projected decals with like stuff burning on top of it too. But that's more like a small detail. The rest of it looks really good. Rest of it looks good. Yeah, the VFX is gonna make like a big difference. So yeah. By the way, I really like the idea of the smoke in the background, but I don't know how to do it. Oh, so yeah. I mean, look for like fire VFX. Look for fire VFX on like the Unreal Engine Marketplace. There is a pack that has basically all the stuff that I added in here. Smokestacks, smoldering areas, bits of fire, large smoke plumes, like all that kind of stuff. It has it built into the pack, so just use that. I would honestly not try to do it yourself. Just because, I mean, it could be cool to dive into, but your yeah, I don't think it's worth it for like an environment artist, right? Because it's gonna take a lot of time if you want to make like good looking stuff. Let me actually see. So, Marketplace. Let me see if I can quickly find. Yeah, I'm not gonna find this easily. Oh wait, I need to search for free, huh? Free. Yeah, this one. This one is honestly really good. Open it. Does it have smokestacks? Maybe it doesn't have smokestacks. Maybe I'm confusing it. But yeah, this one is really good. Been using this for like experimentations in my scenes as well, and it kind of has like different sizes too. So yeah, we'll check this one out. Also, a roach on the rooftop fits in nicely. Smoke and fog effects. Nah, that is the one that I just showed off. I'm surprised that I found it. So it's called M5 VFX Volume 2. But I'm pretty sure if this is called like Volume 2, I'm pretty sure that this guy has like a lot of other ones. So might be worth looking into. Yeah, but that's what I would do. VFX is going to make a huge effect, so the rest costs them 40. I was thinking so. I mean, makes high quality stuff, so yeah. Good on him too. Cool, Dennis. I'm looking forward to see the next update. Best of luck, buddy. Skip all over the place. First, that question before I forget. So Hudson16 is asking, do recruiters go into a deep look like what you do, or is it more like a 5 seconds to impress type of things? So, there was a thread on this on Twitter. I think people were talking about this. The reality of it is, like, you kind of... I was thinking about a comparison, like, I think yesterday. What usually happens is, and this is very subconscious, right? But if an artist is going to look at your portfolio, it's going to take, like, second to know if you're fit for the role or not. I think most of the times it takes a second, and then let's say 5% of the times it's like, might be something here, but I don't know, right? Like, you have those cases where there might be something, but you have to take a deeper dive. Yeah. Honestly, it goes really quick. That's why I put, when I'm doing the portfolio reviews, like, we put like a lot of emphasis on the thumbnails, because that's like the eye-catching candy that you want to sprinkle on your portfolio, right? How recruiters do it? That is a good question, because this depends a lot on the company. I would imagine that recruiters focus a little bit more on the CV rather than on the actual work. Depending, again, on the companies, right? Or like a recruitment agency. But that's what I would imagine. for artists, I know that whenever I was looking at like open positions and I was looking for people to potentially hire, it would be relatively easy. Like it would be relatively quick to do it. For the large majority of people, right? So I don't know what the stats are. I have no numbers to back this up, but if I had to do like an estimation, I think from all the people that apply to a position, like let's say 60% or more even are just out of the running immediately because they either have no portfolio, their work is not good enough yet, or whatever, right? So yeah. And then the other percentage kind of gets a little bit trickier, but you get what I mean. Lamia is saying recruiters are more like an influencer than an artist. You will not get an art review until the reviewer's screening when your name goes to the department leads. Yeah, that's most of the time how it works. Yeah. When I was working at Ubisoft, we kind of did it like a little bit differently in our studio specifically. Because we would put forward like a lot of people that we were interested in first. And then we would send those to the recruiter. Kind of like backwards in a certain sense, but it was really effective for us. Makes sense. I was accepted here in this job because of my work experience. My portfolio was just a second priority. Yeah, honestly, that's why like getting in is so difficult, because experience like just speaks for itself, right? As soon as you got your foot in the door, you've got like a game published and you got that on your portfolio, like going to the next place is easier, like way easier than before. Not gonna say a cakewalk, but it is gonna be relatively easier compared to before. Okay, McVal, let's have a look at what you're trying to build here. Apartment stairway. New block out. Wait, Megval. Didn't we have a look at compositions for the scene last time around? Oh no, that's Goose. Never mind, I retract my statement. It's hard to keep track. Sorry. I'm a bit unsure on what to use as a focal point. Currently, it would be the window, and would like some feedback regarding that. Okay, so we're talking about focal point here. This is a block out. I'm probably not going to say too much about the block out. I'm just going to let you do your thing. Let's talk about the focal point though. And you're going to find this annoying because I think you already know what I'm going to say. Focal point! Exclamation mark. How do we figure out a focal point? What are you trying to say? That's basically what it comes down to. Right? Like, what's the story here? It doesn't need to be like a grandiose story, right? It doesn't need to be. But there needs to be something there, right? So think about that first. It could literally be like as simple as the window is slightly ajar because the local residents are kind of using it as like their local smoking spot. Could be that, right? Because I think you could build this really interesting looking hallway. But if there's nothing there to convince you that it has a story, right? Like it's going to be very tricky. Well, like it's not going to be tricky, but it's not going to be as visually interesting as it could potentially be. Because let's see. I think that's like an abandoned one, right? Like, I think, so this is the thing with like abandoned pieces, right? Like that's like a storied layer onto itself where you could like, once you go abandoned with a place, you can you can go all kinds of ways, right? But let's say if this is not abandoned, like, yeah, what is what stairway, or like what building is this staircase like a part of? Right, that could also be like a way of looking at it too. So the story could either be something very let's say something very implied, right? Something that is like local spot for smoking cigarettes. Nothing too grandiose, right? Like, or it could be like the layer of like the whole thing, right? Where you could make it abandoned. Let's call it like personal. You could make it personal, or you could make it like the whole scene. Right? Where the whole scene could be abandoned. And it's not just abandoned, right? But like, what kind of building is this and why was it abandoned? Right? So that could be that layer. Mispronounced that one. Or you could do something where you'll see this a lot, like in very artistic communities, right? Where like the whole walls have been plastered by like a bunch of stuff, and this is basically, you could almost see it as like a old house, like something that had like a certain style, like a certain class to it at a certain point, but then because it was in like a bad neighborhood, like it just went got more and more like vandalized, or not necessarily vandalized, but like used for graffiti or whatever, right? It could also be a way to go. But it all comes down to like, what's the story you're trying to tell here? Because if you're just telling that, hey, this is just a staircase, there needs to be something more there. Definitely needs to be something more there. Yeah. So, yeah, using the story to determine what your focal point is going to be. Right now, with this composition, it definitely looks like, just because of the contrast of like the exterior and interior, that's going to be where we're probably going to be focusing on, right? So maybe there's something outside that has like a very important thing, right? You could go all kinds of ways. It's just up to you to define what the story is going to be. To kind of help you with that, what building is this? Right? Who owns this, or who is living there? It could be another one. When? As in, what time are we living in? Is this close to when this building was built, or are we living in the future where technology came in, right? I'm just making like a stark contrast. Imagine that this very old school, very ornate looking building got repurposed for something cyberpunky, right? So we're seeing like tech and all that stuff coming into the hallways. Be interesting. It's up to you. Ask these questions and then build a story around it. Okay. Short and to the point. It just comes down to what you want to make of it, right? And again, I want to emphasize it doesn't have to be like this grandiose, like earth-shattering thing, right? Like I'm kind of also thinking about like the first thing that comes to mind, right? Like the the intro screen of The Last of Us 1, it is just a window and a guitar, right? But there is something there, like it has an interest. Like, the pieces fit together, right? Maybe that's also because of the context of the game, but even if you don't know the game or you haven't played it yet, like, that's an interesting scene to look at, right? So you can make stuff like this look really interesting. You just have to build something around it. Cool. Thanks so much for sharing your work, McVal. Best of luck. Got Alan next. Have a look. Added more snow, meshes and blood decals. Yes. Okay, got some lights on the wall as well. First thing that I will say, and this is just like a concern, right? That I'm gonna bring up. I'm gonna add like a little warning sign. Careful with the amount of lights that you're adding. The reason why I bring this up is because we got the truck, we got these lights. Currently, I don't mind it too much, right? But you gotta be careful that everything kind of stays balanced. Oh, McFal, thanks. We'll have to give it some thought while I will start to create some textures and details. I would honestly not even start creating textures and details, because those textures and details can be informed by the story that you're trying to set up, right? I know that I'm being like very strict here, but like let's give you like a really stark contrast, right? Let's say you're going for something clean, and then you're working on like lots of clean assets and textures, but then you're like, oh, but I'm figuring out the story, and the story has more, like, would be better with like an abandoned kind of feel. Now you just did like a whole bunch of work on clean textures that you're no longer going to use, right? So that's why I'm hammering so much on it. Like, story, think about it as the foundation of your scene. Once you got that set up, then you can start building things on top of that, right? But really use that story as a foundation to then help you create like those textures and details and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, there is some stuff that you can do. Like, for example, if you know that like this hallway is not going to change when it comes to like the modeling shapes, you could do that at the meantime, right? Potentially. But I would not think about the textures at this point. Not yet. Figure out the bones of it first. Yeah, but I was saying, so be careful with the amount of lights. Right now, they're not too distracting, but if you start adding and like increasing the intensity and all that kind of stuff, you need to be careful with how distracting it might be. It's not now. Something to be aware of, though. One thing that could be really interesting is because you're working with like a really moody scene, right? I want to honestly see you go all in on that mood and have like local fog so that we kind of see like these headlights in like the fog, right? Like those can be so powerful to really indicate that this is like freaking super snowy. And you make it like really, really dense, right? And then play around with like a volumetric lighting. Would be like a great tool to use. I think honestly, have a look at what they did in. I'm thinking of Division 1, they had like a survival mode where you could see barely anything. It's a little bit over the top for what I'm trying to explain here, right? But they really had like lots of volumetrics, like lots of dense fog, and it really felt like you were like, it was New York, right? Like massive open city, but like it felt really claustrophobic. And I find that so interesting because we're thinking about mood, right? So what kind of mood are you trying to set? And I think in your case, you're trying to give an indication of why these people want to escape, right? Because I'm thinking about the cinematic that we looked at last week, where they're fighting off a flare, right? That could be, again, something that works in cohesion with the story that you're trying to set up, right? So, and it also would look great with the flare, you know, where you see the flare go up in like the really foggy clouds. Fog forming from sewer holes, a possible source of that fog. Yeah, so you would have like steam, right? Could be a great idea. I think it is steam, right? Not sure. That could be a great idea. Great addition there. Thank you for that suggestion, Lamia. Let's have a look. What is some additional context? The color and the mood, the road texturing and decals and lighting. So I feel like okay, I'm gonna be a bit on the nose, right? Last time we talked a lot about like the roads. I think you can still use that same information that we talked about then to really boost what we have here. I'm seeing changes and I like where they go. You just need to drive them up. Like, and like really go for it, right? So I'm gonna write like road changes, like they still apply from like last week, really. And this is also a thing that you have to decide for yourself too, right? You and the team, right? I'm talking about like the communal you. Where if you think that this is enough, then that's enough. Okay? Because I can keep suggesting road changes and like make it more realistic and add like additional layers and add like this and that. But then we're gonna just have the same conversation like every week, right? So the road changes still apply. They could still be pushed further, for sure. And then lighting as well. I think honestly the lighting is good. I would honestly, if there was one thing to focus on, like make it like way more moody. And like really go ham for like the mood that you're trying to set, right? Really make it lots of fog, lots of volumetric effects, like really make it like I'm gonna ask a question, right? So in terms of mood, like what is the type of mood that you guys want to go for? Because what I would do, right, and it's kind of what I was saying before, right? I kind of want to go for, there's an indication of this massive city, but I would want to set a mood that kind of separates the people inside of the city from like whatever happens to the city itself, right? So that means that we're kind of going into like a dystopian scenario, right? Or like a claustrophobic scenario. Which if we wanna give the feeling of claustrophobia, we kind of need to pack things in, right? That's why I emphasize on like the local fog and like really making it like feel like it is really impacting the mood, right? Let me actually see if I can find some screenshots of what I mean. Oh yeah. Oh, these are great already. Love it. Quite horrible screenshots just by itself, but look at this. And really think about, like, how does this make you feel, right? Because that is what is mood all about, right? Like, you're trying to set a mood so it has a strong link to emotion, right? So in this screenshot, what I'm seeing is that you can't see too far, which really plays around with your sense of danger, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen around the corner. And then everything comes so close, so you kind of have this claustrophobic feel, even though we're like out in the open in New York City, right? So this is what I meant. Like, as a visual example, I'm going to add that to the page here as well. Right, and that's why I asked the question of what kind of mood are you going for? Because you're trying to follow like the concept, right? But I think at a certain point you kind of have to deviate from the concept and really try to see what kind of mood you want to set with the cinematic, right? Because you guys are making a cinematic. What is that cinematic going to be around? Right? Like, what's the story? What are you trying to convey? And how does that impact the mood? Or what kind of mood are you trying to set there? Right? So those things are gonna work in conjunction. Randoom, lovely to see you. The fog in the new Silent Hill 2 trailers could be a nice inspiration. Oh, interesting. I haven't looked at those yet. Yeah, I mean, these screenshots are like, I mean, I'm just scrolling through like a lot of stuff, right? So it's not all interesting, but yeah, if you're trying to set a mood, right, you kind of have to go for something that's really impactful, right? Again, from the Division again, just a couple meters away, you can only see the silhouette. Very impactful, right? For your sense of danger or safety. Yeah, you can definitely play it up. But that's why I'm asking the question of like, what is the mood that you want to set, right? Because I'm focusing a lot on like, you're isolated, it's very claustrophobic, so I would add like a lot of fog. But maybe if that is not the mood that you want to set, then you have to figure out what kind of mood you want to set first, and then what the components of that mood. Yeah. Sexy mood. Oh god. Okay. I think we have to change the setting then a little bit. We'll have to do some adjustments there. Scene reminds me of GTA RP. I'm assuming that's role playing. Never played GTA role playing, so. Yeah, Alan. Oh, there's a couple of things that I want to bring up. Oh no, just the one actually, because we kind of talked about like the other thing that I wanted to bring up here, which is like, again, this with local fog, right? Or like with fog volumes. Oh my god, that's gonna be love, you know? It's gonna be love, but that's gonna be good. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is the lights of the car are on, but the car's on fire. So the same with the lights of this car, right? Even though we talked about like the local fog and all that kind of stuff, does it make sense for car lights to be on even though the car is parked. And there's like no real indication that it moved recently, right? So it's a tiny thing. Just wanted to bring it up. Car lights on? Makes sense? Question mark. Cool. Thanks so much, Alan, for bringing it up. I hope this helps. Been popular lately on streams. GTA 5 just modded something called 5M. I'll need to look that up. I heard people talking about it, and it sounds really interesting. So I'm gonna check it out. Beach day mood. You could honestly make that work. With that environment, you'll have to change like the cars a little bit, right? Because you don't want them to like look broken. But you could make it like really sunny, beach day mood, like really up the saturation of the colors, and you can make it feel like really beach day-y, right? Quote unquote. Change the snow to sand. It's a great idea. I like where your head is. Just turn New York in like a giant beach. Okay, the apples. Let's have a look. It's been a while. It's been a while. The last update. Oh no, it's not. It's been a while that we talked about it, but you've been working on this. You've been working on this on your own. So great work. General feedback on what to improve. My opinion is that I have the middle part of the image. Oh, I have to change the middle part of the image, sorry. Maybe with a fountain instead of all those market stalls? The top of the picture is cut off. Yes. Yeah. I crammed the two in. So because it was mostly about the fountain rather than anything else, right? And this one is cropped as well a little bit. So keep that in mind. I got some issue and artist, so don't have more time to spend. No, don't worry about it. No pressure. So about the fountain, I think that could work. I think you identified something that I think I agree with, right? Which is like the center is a bit messy, and I think just having something there to replace it could work. It could be a fountain. It could also be just like a little water well, right? Like one of those like medieval water wells. With maybe like a card beside it. Something like that. That could work too. It just depends on how built up you want it to be, right? Like I feel like this fountain here kind of is something that you would see in more built up cities or like later in medieval time. You know what I mean? So the gist of having a fountain or something there is good, right? I'm not sure the fountain is like the best piece to put there. So hey, but if you're like, no, want to do a fountain? Do the fountain, right? Maybe my proposal would be a water well. First thing that comes to mind, right? I think it would be interesting to talk about, or like to try and figure out why you want to replace it. And I have the same feeling too, right? So I'm gonna do like some out loud thinking here. I think the reason why I would want to replace it is because the center feels really busy. And it's taking up like a lot of your attention, right? So I'm gonna reveal like the entire image so that we can see it with like all the context. So it feels really busy. What we I think what could also work, again, thinking out loud here, right? So if we... Shit. We're just gonna work in volumes for a little bit, right? Maybe I should. Yes, all the mess. Let's go. We have something that's maybe like out of balance, right? So that we have like a stall here, but then the front of it is just like, I don't know, just like wares laid out, right? Like whatever you want the wares to be. Oh, I think... No, we need to flip it. Any permanent stone piece. A plaza that small wouldn't have any central piece. Yeah. Okay, so the reason why I would say flip it, because I'm thinking about like where you're gonna be looking in the frame, right? So what's gonna happen now is we kind of shift the balance from being in the center to more to the side, right? So we have like my intent originally, stick with me for a second, was like I want to make this like one volume so that we kind of make this like a bit more imbalanced, right? So that we add like some visual interest. However, I think looking at it more, what happened with having this large volume on the right is that we just have like this really boring straight line going here, which is also not really interesting, right? So what we could do instead, is instead of having that to the right, maybe it would be more interesting. Let's see. This is like an exercise for myself as well, right? So we would have like a large piece that kind of casts shadow on this guy. Then because we create like a volume here, now you're kind of like slinging through the whole environment. Because you're kind of going from here, take this path, and then you're going like to the back like that. Which is like visually like a more interesting path than just going like straight into it, in my opinion. I don't know. Like, you have so many options, right? Like, we could potentially, like, fully block this off as well. I don't know how that's gonna work. Yeah. I think that's the gist of it, though. I know that this was really messy, right? But I was trying to be like very transparent with the way that I'm thinking about this. And I think playing around more with like the volumes in the foreground is going to help a lot. I would definitely try to create some sort of an imbalance so that you force people to kind of go and like walk through the whole scene themselves, right? You could do that by kind of like blocking off like sections here. And then maybe making like the centerpiece. Like I added like another stall here, right? Maybe you're being like a little bit more interactive with like how people engage, like how many shade you're creating just to create like an interesting path going through the whole thing. How much shade and like shadows, sorry. There's definitely options here. It just makes it like a little bit more interesting to look at, right? Like a little bit more contrast instead of just like a large plane of like the same values. So, does that make sense, the apples? Are you following? Not sure if I was clear enough on that. So what it basically comes down to is adding an imbalance in your composition. Because I think, in my opinion, there's just like, it's too samey. Too samey in the foreground. This idea is cool, but I need to figure out what I have to do. Yeah, that's the thing. I would also, if I were in this position, I would honestly, what I would do is I would grab like some of these assets, right? And just duplicate them into places where they could potentially work. And then see which configuration works the most. Because I would love to play around with the scene, right? Because we could do this live and I could like see what composition works and like go back and forth and like test like a lot of stuff immediately, right? It's a little bit trickier when I do it in Overpaint, of course. But I would just use like the assets that you already have just as a volume and just see what makes sense. Because yeah, I think if we create like a little bit more shadow here, eh? I know it's all very, very crude and dirty, right? Yeah, I have to see. Definitely worth playing around with. Definitely worth playing around with. So, imbalancing the composition, and then you could still do your idea, right? Having something in the middle. I would then possibly also try to tie it in with other stuff too. Because what I like about like my impression of like medieval markets, right, by playing games and all that stuff, is that a lot of them were just like packed to the brim with stuff. It would be really interesting to see that they try to maximize most of the space, right? Because even in this composition, you would probably still have like a small little stall here, and then potentially, I don't know, some other stuff here, you know, like volumes. I don't know. Definitely something to play around with. I would really pay attention to like how you're guiding people through your frame. So often this is referred to as player leading, right? Because what we have to do as environment artists, we have to think about like how a player is going to be interacting with their environment, right? And we do this with all the tools that we have available: composition, lighting, colors, contrast, all that kind of stuff. But keep that in mind. I know it's not like an actual action plan, right? I'm just giving you the tools and then you have to see how you can build with it. But like the player leading, keep that in mind. Like this line that takes you through the whole thing, the reason why I added stuff here is because I didn't want people to just go like, oh, there's like a path here. I'm just gonna go straight to the end. And that's it. You kind of want to keep them in the composition as long as possible, right? Let me think. I'm also thinking, okay, maybe another thing that I want you to play around with. This is going to be so annoying. Because we could have caught this like way earlier, but I think maybe what I don't like is that the door is very central. And I would rather have it like somewhere offset. Maybe this is like a personal thing. Because we're leading people to like a dead center of the frame. And usually we follow the rule of thirds, right? Like you kind of want people's attention to be like offset. There's also a reason. It's gonna be a stupid comparison, right? But like, there's a reason why we like the right shape more than the left shape. It's because it's not like perfect, you know? Like we kind of like our like, what is that? The golden ratio where it's like 1.618 or whatever. Something like that. You can apply that to the rule of thirds as well. Would be something to play around with. If it's too set in stone, like maybe you could play around with your camera a little bit to kind of give that effect, right? Because you do have that option as well. Something to play around with too. But yeah. Enough rambling. I'm gonna let you do your thing because I'm sure that you're gonna figure it out. You're gonna have to figure out what you're gonna do, but I'm confident that you're gonna figure it out. Oh, and also, I hope that the art test went well. I hope that you get the job. Right. Oh yeah, and thanks for posting your work. Appreciate that too. And the last one here. Ellie? I think Ellie? Eli? Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Hello there, I'm new here and I'm thrilled to be here. I am thrilled to have you as well. Welcome to the community. I've been working on a small project trying to make a forest environment inspired by the art of Project Black. Okay, so we got the ref down here. It's cool. I have not heard of Project Black, but it looks great. So I could get with some general feedback on the overall project, colors, composition. That would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so colors. Okay, first up, colors. Let's have a look. First thing that kind of jumps out to me is that I don't think there's enough color variation in the individual plants, right? Like if we're focusing on this guy over here. I don't think there's enough color variation there yet. What is a very common tactic, I'm gonna see if I can see it in here. It's not as pronounced. Kind of see it here. Maybe that's also like the shadowing as well, but so what is like a very common tactic, I'm gonna draw it on here, is that there's a gradient that goes from the bottom to the top. And that basically means that you're just gonna be taking like your leaves here. I think you kinda have it going. There's some sort of I don't know. Might be a gradient happening there. Yeah, that would be like the first thing. Like a gradient going from top to bottom. From bottom to top, sorry. It's a very good tactic. I would honestly just like push the color variation more by itself. Right, because here you're getting like really nice colors. Like you're getting reds, you're getting purples, you're getting like little splashes of green, right? Like I think being like a little bit bolder. There's something interesting happening with this one, right? Like that's going into like a nice direction. But yeah. I would honestly look into, there's a lot of great tools online for this. Look into color charts and complementary colors. Complementary colors is only one of the things that you can use, right? But it's basically picking opposite colors from the color spectrum, right? So if all the colors were on a circle, you're basically picking like opposite points. Because they work really well, right? So like a stereotypical thing in lighting is having the contrast between orange and blue, right? That works really well because they're complementary colors. The same can be applied to individual assets as well. That's why some of these work really nicely, right? Because you got like blues and reds like in the same sort of like vicinity. Yeah, I would definitely look into like color charts and all that stuff, because colors are going to be really important here. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see if I can focus on the colors first, right? So the stones are actually going into a nice direction. I like what you're doing. I'm kind of seeing like blues and greens and all that kind of stuff on the stones. It's starting to look really interesting. Lots of color variation. And honestly, like the shapes themselves, right? Like the plants that you have currently, they have like nice bulky shapes. I think what you wanna do in terms of your composition, if we're gonna jump to the composition now, is you kind of have to make sure that you have a variation of shapes, because in our simplification here we have chunk, we have chunk, and we have a couple of chunks, right? But let's assume this is chunk, let's assume this is chunk. So all the shapes here, well, let me be fair, grass as well. All the shapes here, you have your large shapes, and you have your small shapes, which is the grass, but you have nothing in between to fill in the gap. Because what we try to do is we try to make like nice compositions, right? And we can see like a gradient happening from like the larger shapes. So we have number one. Well, I guess there's more, right? But let's stick to the bushes. So we got number one, we got number two, and then again we got the grass, right? Number three. We've got like a nice gradient of shapes that can then be put into like mini compositions by themselves. And that works really well. Yeah, so that would be the first thing on the composition. And the second thing where you can make like lots of improvements is on the scattering of the grass. Because now the grass is really uniform. But grass especially really comes to life when you take a little bit more time and scatter it in places where it would make sense, right? So that could mean cutting out the grass in like a certain section here. And then around the foliage, you probably want like a little bit less density. And then in certain regions, like you want to have like more, or you want to have like higher grass. So you pick like certain sections where you have like tufts of grass that are like larger. So we're trying to do this like very logical approach to like how our grass is going to be scattered in our world, and it's going to make like a giant difference, especially if you're focusing on such a small composition. It's really going to shine. So we turn that from uniform into basically like big shape breakup, right? So you want like, again, that's what's happening here as well, right? So you have like the breakup of the shape where it's not like a uniform thing. So we have that breakup. And number 2 was reduction. Wonder if we can see it here. They do have different plants, so it's not going to be as apparent. I'm assuming that under this guy here, there's probably going to be less grass because it takes up a lot of the shadow of that area, right? So the denser our canopy is going to be, and the denser the foliage that's going to be on top of the grass, the less grass it's going to be because there's less light. So reduction under foliage. Number 3 would then be grass variation, right? Again, 3 steps, creating like really interesting grass, right? Can do a lot with that. Yeah. One thing that occurred to me as we were kind of looking at the inspiration, right? We're going to bring this up. I'm assuming that you have additional ref compared to your inspiration, but look up real life references. Because what we're doing here is we're looking at other people's interpretation of what real life could potentially be. And we don't know if they looked at like accurate references or not, right? So all the stuff that I was bringing up, especially under this section here, where grass gets reduced because there's more shadow, all that kind of stuff, that comes from references, right? That comes from looking at the forest floor and taking like way too many pictures. So yeah, that's why real life references are really important. Side note, just wanted to bring that up. And then, yeah. Main direction with this is to push. There's a additional image. Oh, okay. This is a huge image. Give me some time. Oh, this is the whole rev board. Okay. Alright, it's loading in. Like, I feel like I'm on like old school internet. Look at it. Yeah. Okay. It's good that we brought up like the real life ref, because I can't really see anything like that, right? So go for the real life ref, get accurate references. That's definitely going to help you. Your decisions. And the main direction is to push myself with new tools and bigger projects. So I want to make like a foliage display scene for the final piece of the project. Yeah, that's great. Taking off like a bite-sized chunk of a project, focusing on the foliage. Really great idea. What are you doing with this? And again, like I said before, I think the shape and the texture, like the base that you have already, is really good. So, really great work so far. It up with little star. I feel like a teacher now. Okay. Thank you so much for posting your work. I hope this is helpful. If there's any additional questions, feel free to just DM me on the server. And yeah, welcome to the community. Happy to have you here. And with that said, I'm gonna do it for this session. I'm glad I was accompanied by a lovely little heart over here. It's a shorter session than usual. Wow. Okay. So what is going to happen after the session, because we got a couple of new people here, right? Is I will post the images like in your thread, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the Whip Wednesday tag. So if you want additional feedback from me next week, you will have to re-add your tag before that time, right? With like new updates and new questions. So you will see an image pop up very soon there. With that being said, I'm heading out. Thank you so much all for being here. Thanks so much for the support. If you're not a part of the community, go check out beyondextent.com. We have a bunch of free stuff on there anyway. Even if you don't want to become a part, go check it out. Adam, is he gonna say it? Oh no, what? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm heading off, people. Stay creative. Bye-bye.